Hello and welcome. We're going to be looking at defining and redefining the artist archetype in this session. So, I wanted to first talk about the artist archetype and how it presents within our lives, and it's in two major ways. The first one is going to be people who really find comfort in creating art as a form of personal therapy. So the artist archetype will come into your field and into your energy field as a tool for you to alchemize. So it can be in the form of writing for yourself, poetry, creating craft work, writing down music, painting, crocheting, knitting, anything that is an artistic and creative form of expression that brings something into the physical can really be a powerful tool for you to therapize, to get your emotions and your thoughts out. Or even if you're knitting and crocheting and cross stitching and tapestry, you're still creating something beautiful and you're allowing your mind to calm to create this. And like when I've done those aspects, when I've done crafts or I've knitted, it allows both hemispheres of my brain to balance out. I'll think about things and it is me time. So all of those aspects is basically art therapy. It's the artist archetype coming in for us to help create something into physical form from nothing. We can follow a pattern, we can cook, anything that brings that creative expression out is a utilization of the artist archetype. The second aspect to the artist archetype is probably the most misunderstood and where we need to do some redefining. And we need to understand that if we're going to create art and we feel that calling and compulsion to share it with others, you're actually in that energy of channel space, channel energy, where you're bringing through something from another energy, from source, from the galactical families, from your ancestors, from your bloodline, the wisdom keepers. It can also be you might have had a traumatic experience and you're wanting to create art which expresses your experience into a physical form. But then that then triggers an emotional response in somebody else. When you open yourself up to sharing this art with others, then they have a feeling. And this is the powerful aspects of galleries is 10 different people can sit in front of a painting and have 10 different experiences. And there's something incredibly beautiful and potent about the artist who creates the work and then has to allow the other people to interpret. You can have your intention, but it doesn't mean that whatever your intention is what that person's going to feel and invoke. So when this aspect of the artist archetype activates, it's very much like the poet archetype. And the poet archetype is a bridging archetype. And poetry is very much in the family of the artist archetype. They're both bridging archetypes. They channel the divine through. I watched this profound TED talk by the author of Eat, Pray, Love. I think her name's Elizabeth Gilbert. but don't quote me on that. It's escaped my mind for the moment. And during this TED talk, she referenced the Greeks and how they used to have their artist would have a genius. And she laughingly referenced it to like a Dobby-like creature that lived in the walls. But what it's talking about is archetypally is the Greeks understood that when they were creating art, it wasn't just them. Their genius or this creature that was working with them co-created the aspect, and it took the pressure off the artist. And this is fundamental. And you have to really understand the power of what she's saying is she talked about, well, suddenly, these artists, and the more famous you get, the more pressure you experience to be the genius, to have this talent that everyone goes, oh my God, you're so talented. And it activates the ego so that you believe it's just yours. But it's not. You're channeling an experience. You're channeling directly from spirit, or you're channeling an experience that happened in your life, which is then to make a difference in other people's lives. So you are still vibrationally being of service and in that energy of helping other people have an emotional reaction. If you look at some of our greatest musicians, and especially the ones who come forth and change genres and change lives, they are quite often very troubled. They can have mental health problems. They can be seen as controversial. They can be scandalous. They can be the forerunners of expressing what's happening in the collective, and it's coming through one person. And they can turn to drugs, and they can turn to alcohol, and they can turn to all kinds of stuff because they feel the overwhelming pressure of being the genius instead of just acknowledging that they're the bridge. They're under soul contract to create this artwork, which then helps people during their darkest moments. So that is not you, that's spirit working within you. So some of the 3D programs which the artist archetype can activate, and it can go into the shadow aspects, and that is this starving artist. So there is this belief and this, I've seen it multiple times where they don't make any money until they die, and then their work is worth a lot of money, or they have to live on noodles and water, and they're not going to make much money, and they starve to start off with. There's a huge mindset aspect to this, which is twofold. One, it is the belief system that's currently in our consciousness about the artist. But there's also a huge social perceptions, and this is the second aspect we need to talk about, is social misunderstandings and projections. How many times do you hear of parents that are upset when their child wants to become an artist? They want to be a writer, a poet, a singer, an artist. And they're like, no, 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 we want you to be a nurse. No, 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 I want you to be a teacher, an accountant, something that's reliable. And the parent, who is supposed to be the guiding force, thinks they're doing the right thing, but they could be adding weight to this program that artists can't make money. Becoming an artist and getting paid for it is impossible, or it's just so hard. And I can almost feel some of yous right now going, oh my God, it is. Oh my God, you don't understand. But no. When you're in channel mode and you're receiving divine inspiration and instruction to go forth and create something, what happens is other archetypes activate that create the blocks. And if you can stay in your channel space, in your lover and sovereign archetype, if you love yourself enough and you're just like, okay, I'm creating this artwork, I really feel like I'm called to do this and that it's going to help change people's lives, or it needs to be shared with people, and it's a driving force, it's a calling, it's your purpose. It's not a whimsical little idea, it's what you're wanting to do. You should be then asking, well, what do I do next to get this out there to people? And actually trust, because if you're in that channel space, Spirit will give you the signs and the lessons, the opportunities, the synchronicities, and lead you to where you need to go. And I know that each one of you listening to this can think of multiple famous people who have had this exact thought, this exact experience. There's one of the Hay House authors, and she wrote her book. And after she wrote her book, the moment she finished, she's like, I don't know anybody. Like, how do I get this out there? And she went into all this self-doubt and everything. And the next moment, she's like, no, hang on. And she closed her eyes and she's, okay, I've wrote this book. What do you want me to do next? How do I get it to people? And she has this thought to call such and such and ask them for their advice. And then they gave her the person that she needed to contact. And from the moment she wrote the book to the moment she made contact with these other people in these weird circumstances, boom, her book goes and it's a bestseller. She took an express route past all the other aspects that come up, all the other, the self-esteem archetypes. I'll talk about them in a minute. So you have the starving artist, but there is a second aspect that needs to be talked about, and that is the tortured artist. So there's a program running that you have to suffer for your art, and you don't. They feel like they have to go into the darkest aspects of themselves, or their life has to be really hard, or they one of my friend's fathers was a sculptor, and he turned to alcohol, and he used to be the tragic artist, she called him. You know, he used to be very dramatic, and he would go into the aspects of being that tortured artist. But it was almost a role that he played because he didn't truly know what the artist archetype is and how it's working with him. And I feel like this ties in all the way back to like the Renaissance era. And I had a fabulous and interesting conversation with a man called Robert Pope years ago. And he was talking about how during Plato and Aristotle's time, art and science were together. This is even before religion. And even if you bring religion to it, they're all together. And that meant that you couldn't create something without also asking, is this for the greater good of the entire planet? But they separated the two of them. And the art was vital because the arts explores the psychic, the human psyche, and the emotions and the feelings, and not just if this is pleasant to look at. This is myself expressing who I am. I'm expressing the energies of society. It's a vital component. If you don't have art, you're not going to have a society. Why do you think so many governments put so much money and time and effort into the arts staying there? Is because we fundamentally need it. It's how we process our emotions and how we start conversations on a public scale about things. We can all debate an artwork. So when we have taken and split the arts and the sciences, and the artist has kind of gone off and it's become like this tragic starving artist, and it's then they become geniuses, and it's just the one person who is creating all of this stuff. There's no talk of spirituality. It's just creating art for money. How many records can you sell? How many paintings can you make? How much popularity can you gather? How famous can you become? And then we look at what happened to that artist as that's happening. And they kind of lost their voice in the collective as what is important. The science went off and become, science is so vastly important, and then arts is pushed to the wayside. And I really feel like the artist kind of lost their sense of identity as being that channel. And that moment is when they came forth and they're like, I'm the tortured artist, I'm the starving artist, and they get all these personas that come through. If you actually respect the artist archetype within you as a real grounding force of your active service, if you're cold and passionate and you're feeling like this is how I can express myself and help the collective, then if you stay in that energy, like I said before, of okay, Spirit, show me what to do next. I want to help people. I want to bring this forth. Spirit's already giving you the information to create the product. They want you to get it out to people. They want it to be successful. They want it to be important. So what happens is you get the artist archetype here is a soul esteem, but then one of the self-esteems activate. So the imposter syndrome, the perfectionist, your shadow judge can activate. The orphan child archetype. So you know how in many of my other works, I've talked about the different child archetypes that Caroline Mace has created and defined. Well, the orphan archetype fears rejection and abandonment. Is this huge, like overwhelming, anxious feeling of, oh my God, what will people think of me? So you have to be careful to actually look at, is it the imposter syndrome where you don't feel good enough, you're not qualified enough? Or is it actually rejection and abandonment on a primal level? And it could be the orphan child that you actually have and need to push through. So when you come up to getting your artwork out there in however form it is, statues, tattooing, creating jewelry, paintings like this, knitting, if you're feeling called to create a business from it. It is not the artist archetype that has issues. It is one of those self-esteems that needs healing. Your prostitute archetype might not feel worthy enough. You might have the inner critic from the sabotaging pattern, and it's in those aspects that you need to do the work. You need to get a mindset coach. You need to get an empowerment coach, you know, someone who does work like me, or somebody who you instinctively trust can help you push through this. A lot of people will start with reading some self-help books, and you know, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is hugely confronting for my ego, but it really helped. You can have those starts with books, or you can get yourself a mindset and empowerment coach who does similar things like myself, who are going to take you through the shadow aspects of, hang on, I have this issue and I need to deal with it. The very first lesson on my podcast is what is ascension, and why do we need to be doing it? And I talk about on the energetics of it, and how you have your root chakra, solar, and sacral. Your lower three chakras, your survival aspects, is going to be where a lot of these feelings, concerns, issues, self-doubts, they're all locked energetically within there and need to have the work. It's the heart, the beautiful heart chakra, where you start to love yourself enough to go, hang on, I'm not particularly happy with how I'm going with this. I need to do some work. I need to heal this because I need to get my artwork out there. I know for a fact that this is really, really, really important, and it must be done. I keep getting this message over and over from spirit. And trust me, you don't ignore spirit. If you ignore spirit for too long, you develop terrible health problems, terrible mental health problems. Your life starts to go to spiraling, and then you hit the wall, and the universe says, been trying to tell you something for 10 years and you're not listening, so we're going to give you a really big freaking lesson, and you'll go into a dark night of the soul because you haven't been listening. So I really wanted to redefine the artist archetype and show you the scope of what has happened to it over the millennia, where it went from being acknowledged as this powerful, important part of society, and it also was acknowledged by the Greeks as, hang on, it's not just you, it's also the divine expressing through you, to all of a sudden in our modern era, it's how many albums you can sell, aren't you a freaking genius, you're the best at this, you're so famous, how many likes can you get, how many followers can you get, how many this, and it all is about the individual, and it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be the bridge, you're supposed to be the channel. And if people could truly respect the artist, stop thinking of them as a career where they're going to not make any money, they're going to struggle, and start, stop projecting upon them, and instead respect them for what they do and the ability and everything that they bring forth, we can help them as they're ascending into who they are, and they can really start to understand the power of what they have, redefine what they are as an artist, and then start working on those self-esteem so you can start creating what the divine wants you to. So I hope this has helped. I thank my beautiful friend in the Facebook group who wanted to know more about the artist archetype, because I really wanted to bring through and have this discussion so that we can really look at these aspects, and everybody needs to. So us in society who don't have the artist archetype as a calling needs to be respectful and understand what it does in society and how vital it is, and stop thinking about artists in negative ways. And then those who feel the calling need to step up and be that bridge. We need to redefine what it is, and so we can step in and embody it. If you feel that calling, you need to step up and do it. So thank you, and I will see you soon for my next teaching.